New Mexico continues to rank near the bottom of just about every child well-being list and study. We have high rates of teen suicide, alcohol use, and poverty rates. But as the Santa Fe New Mexican reported this week, new leadership and a new outlook at the Children, Youth, and Families Department hopes to change all that. According to the article by Steve Jansen, part of the evolution of COAFD has to do with new voices from outside the protective services ecosystem, like Secretary Brian Blaylock, who came to New Mexico from the nonprofit world in California. Mr. Blaylock has no prior government experience, but, says Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, it's been a big help in his learning curve. So I'm curious, as a start, is moving away from that institutional thinking a positive step in bringing new, fresh ideas to the situation?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and as I often bring up on this show, I really like to see bold ideas. Let's not just do the same old thing and expect a different outcome. Right. So yes, I think bringing in some outside, out-of-the-box thinking on this, and really the solutions, the out-of-the-box solutions are really very reasonable. So it's not even that, outrageous of an idea, but I think it's great that that this is a priority and that Secretary Blaylock is coming up with these different kinds of solutions that will hopefully help over the long term. I don't think it's, none of these solutions are like a one shot, like one answer is the thing, and certainly, trying to help kids who walk in the door of school without having had breakfast, without having had a safe place to sleep, needing to get to work in order to pay for their own food or their family's bills or whatever. These are really tough issues that I think we put a lot of responsibility on the school system, the juvenile justice system to fix. And so the fact that he's bringing this big task force together, or I don't know if he's bringing a task force together, but the solutions that he's proposing are interesting and I think more creative.
Tom, one idea that's been out there for a while, but he seems to be moving ahead with, is the idea of keeping foster kids with family members. And as it stands right now, it might shock most folks. Right now, only 23% of our state's foster youth are currently living with a relative. And the science seems pretty clear here that if you want some stability there, a relative of some sort is actually the best way to go. That's a pretty good start there when you see that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And, when it comes to foster care, that's probably one of the key touch points that could use a lot of improvement.
Yeah.
You started off the segment by talking about getting rid, changing the institution. Well, in order to change, to get rid of the institutional thinking, you have to get rid of the institution. And sometimes a lot of the, employees are just sitting there waiting for, they're here for, new secretary's here for 4 years or 8 years. I'll just kind of wait them out and, kind of see what happens. Right. But, there are a lot of great employees too. I don't want to take that away. But, we've had a couple of different out-of-the-box thinkers. Heather Wilson was an out-of-the-box thinker. She was head of CYFD. Monique Jacobson, definitely an out-of-the-box thinker. What I like about Brian Blaylock is just that he comes from a nonprofit experience in this particular arena. So, the expectation is much greater with him than his predecessors. Gotcha. But I think that the foster care system, having friends who are actually in that space, who are extremely frustrated with it, and hearing their stories, my heart breaks, for the children that are caught in here. But when it really comes down to it, though, just something that Brian Blaylock said is that he wants to support families so that they're able to have better outcomes. That, to me, is a really good sign.
Good point there. Sophie, this, of course, has a legal background, and Native American kids not being placed led to a lot of lawsuits out there on this very issue. So there's other things I want to talk about, but please do touch on this if you would.
Sure. Yeah. So there's a long-standing Indian Child Welfare Act, which actually, the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court is expected to, I don't think they've heard on it yet, but I think they're certainly expected to issue a decision on the status of that program. But the Indian Child Welfare Act essentially requires that a Native American child be placed within the Native American community, whether it's with family members or not. Kinship, guardianship is the term that we use to talk about this idea that even if it is necessary to remove a kid from their parents' custody, that there is a value in placing them with other kin, or people who kind of can take on the role of kin. But what we see is with the Native American community, there has been a strong preference for and law behind the idea that children should not be completely ripped from their environment, and it is encouraging to see New Mexico take that same tack, because we're one of the worst states for that. We really don't succeed often in keeping kids within their family structure, and we have the research now that tells us how very damaging that is for the children. And we know children who are harmed by the foster care system have higher suicide rates, they have lower high school and college graduation rates. They really struggle in ways that go beyond the damage that's done from living in a home that is not functional. We compound that damage when we take them away completely from their safe environment, what they feel is an emotionally safe environment.
It creates lifelong trauma for that child, just to be taken away, separated from their parent, no matter if it's short or long term. It's created that lifelong trauma. So now we're dealing with all of these other,
Society will deal with it down the road as that child grows into an adult. And one of the things, getting to Giovanna's point about out-of-the-box thinking, one of the ones that excites me is extending the age from 18 to 21 to be able to be eligible for foster care services. And other states have found highly effective in keeping, frankly, kids out of jail. I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
I think that's so important. I think that's such a wise move. And, you know, why this number, 18 years of age, and suddenly you think the person's whole life has changed. And
That's right.
It's about time that we put some focus on continuing to support those individuals who are most in need. And what I like about this this new philosophy, it sounds like it's a new philosophy. It's reframing and refocusing the issue and providing much needed resources. It's so important, again, with a law enforcement background. You often see negative outcomes when we traumatize, children at very young ages, especially when they need it the most. But in my practice, I have cases in which involve children, youth, and family. And I have to say that those that I've worked with do an outstanding job. They are compassionate, and in most cases, they have the best interest of the children in mind. But it is a system, it is a philosophy, and of course the leadership is important because those that report to the leader will rise to the level of the leader's expectations. So this is a move in the right direction.
That's right. Giovanna, interestingly, this caught my eye too, is there's policy issues at play here in changing the law that allowed for prosecution of sex workers under the age of 18 to be tried for prostitution instead of for treating them as survivors of sex trafficking. There's a big difference there. Do you know what I mean? Instead of criminalizing young women for prostitution, we dig a little bit deeper and find out why they're in the business of prostitution in the first place.
If I can just jump in.
Please.
A child cannot be a prostitute.
Okay.
A child can be the victim of sex trafficking.
Right.
A child can be raped.
Okay.
But a child cannot be a prostitute because she or he is not capable of consent.
Gotcha. Good point there.
So good legal distinction there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, protecting children and not. I mean, I would just refer to Sophie's comments there, and I don't even remember what your actual.
That's right. That's right. There are things in policy that can help this as well. That we stop criminalizing kids, be they 18, 19 years old, or minors, and just in general terms. Yeah.
And stopping criminalizing kids, and also looking at again the root causes of why are these things happening in the home, and why is this going on?
That's right.
And looking at some of the poverty and housing issues and access to food, and it's such a bigger system. And so when we try to go in and look at the problem like a car, like let me just go fix that tire and forget about the rest of the car, but we need to look at a holistic solution here.
Good point there. And the governor is also seeking $28 million for behavioral health programs to go along with this. That's going to be a big part of this. Time will tell if these new changes have an impact, and for sure we will continue to talk about it right here at this table. Still to come, how Santa Fe schools are working with COAFD on a new approach to keeping kids in school.